Hello, welcome to Smash Hit Sports. I'm Cody, that's Nick, and college football had itself a weekend this past weekend. It was incredible from start to finish. The noon slate to the end of a quadruple overtime game in the night slate. It was incredible. Truly top to bottom, just S tier football. Absolutely loved it. Before we get into it, make sure you like the video. It's a huge help to the podcast. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything. But Nick, what a weekend of college football. I mean, truly just absolutely outstanding.
Dude, I mean, it has me thinking that this might actually be like the greatest season of college football. And I made a video yesterday about how blessed we are. Like how the 12-team playoff is truly setting up for this week and then the conference championship weeks to have some of the most meaningful football that you could ever really dream of at this point in the season. And I like for all the people that were like Ohio State, Oregon didn't matter. That game was amazing. You wouldn't trade it for the world. And all of the other games that you said wouldn't matter, like Georgia, Alabama, well, guess what? They did matter. They did. Everything this season has proven that the 12-team playoff was right in making the regular season incredible. Now it remains to be seen if, there are some blowouts in the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just so captivated by this season. It has taken me by the throat. It's amazing.
It's an absolute roller coaster. Everybody compares it to 2007, but like when you look at what we've had with how the Big 12 is absolutely upside down. Like Oklahoma State, I think had the third best odds to win the conference. They're at the bottom. Arizona State had the worst odds to win the conference, and they're at the top. Like their SEC, Texas is at the top, but like Alabama's not going to hit 10 wins. Ole Miss is not going to hit 10 wins. Missouri's not hitting that. Insane from top to bottom. Indiana is one of the best teams in the country. It is truly incredible. And it's been absolutely insane, truly from start to finish. We started this entire college football season with an upset in Ireland with Georgia Tech beating a top 10 Florida State team, which began to dismantle their season. It started with chaos in week 1, and I have a hunch that it's going to end in chaos this week. Truly can't wait. I'm pumped.
Yeah. And I think everyone compares everything to 2007, but this is like controlled chaos to an extent. Like it feels less fluky and more, like some of these results are surprising, but when you're watching the game, it just makes sense. Like this, like every team is very capable. Whereas in 07, you had USC was like a 40-point favorite over Stanford. USC hadn't lost in like 35 games, and they lost like that. Like that, and you had USF or whoever, like ranked second in the country, and Kansas.
Yeah, South Florida was up there. Yep.
Right. You had like things that by the end it was like, well, that's ridiculous, right? Like as great as that was that season, thank God the national championship ended up being what it was, because it could have been out of control. It was a very out of control season that was just amazing for the fan. This season, I mean, I think we're going to get a lot of really deserving teams who are very capable. And the top is still the top. But now that we have 12 teams allowed in, it opens up the avenue that now there are like 20 to 25 teams that are still holding on with hope for making a run.
Yeah, I saw a graphic. There are 9 teams that mathematically still can make the Big 12 title game.
No
9
way.
Yes. There are 9 teams that mathematically can still make the Big 12 title game.
I
It's
was
bonkers.
looking into that. I couldn't figure it out. I think when I was looking into it, the media didn't even know how to figure out the tiebreakers. Everything's so new. But it felt like that was true. I mean, I know Texas Tech, I wouldn't be shocked if they somehow won the Big 12 still, because, no one is even talking about them. It would just be hilarious if they did that. But 9 teams is hard to comprehend in rivalry week. That's crazy.
Yep. Let's talk about last week's action. Starting with the big noon kickoff. IU falls to Ryan Day and Ohio State. I wish Indiana put up a better fight. It was It wasn't what I expected from Indiana. Like, I expected them to be outgunned and outmanned because Ohio State's roster, top to bottom, unequivocally better. What I didn't expect was Indiana to shit down their leg and shoot themselves in the foot multiple times. I think that was the most frustrating part to me was like the turnovers, the unforced errors, like the
The
punter
special
just not.
teams
Yeah,
errors, like they almost, the game was as bad as it was because of their special teams. It would have been a little closer. Like, I don't think people would be talking about Indiana in as negative of a light if they just could punt and
yeah,
like, not let up punt return touchdowns from Caleb Downs. But yeah, no. So I genuinely think that it's such a reactive world that we're in, right? Where it's our job to just react to what just happened. And so a lot of people are like, well, we all knew Indiana wasn't actually that good. They hadn't played anyone, and they just showcased that they don't deserve to be where they are. But I think that's a cop out, reaction, because this is a team that is not used to going on the road as a top 5 team to play the best roster in college football in this high pressure game. This is a school, like the program as a whole. Like, you see it all the time where a bad team keeps it close versus a very, very, well-known team that's very successful, right? And the successful team always seems to pull it out. It's close, but it's like you should go for 2 if you're the worst team. Indiana was top 5, but I don't know. It felt like if they, you know, treated the game a little differently, and if we as just media representatives, I guess, react to it as they're not used to being there, it would be a little more understandable to say, like, yeah, they weren't going to win that game. And once it got out of hand, it just got a little out of hand. But, like, I don't think Indiana's bad. I think you have to look at their whole entire, play and how good they've been throughout the first 10 games.
yeah. And I think the other thing too is Indiana's defense wasn't terrible. Like they held Ohio State to the least amount of yards that any team has held Ohio State to all season. Like they did a solid job. The special teams mistakes killed them. At the end of the day, I think Ohio State is just a really fucking good team, like potentially one of the best 2 teams in the country. And we saw that displayed on Saturday. My takeaway from this isn't that Indiana doesn't belong. My takeaway from this is that Ohio State is one of a few teams that can win a national title.
Yeah, and this is an Ohio State team that lost to Oregon by like 1 point in Oregon. Another team like Ohio State traveling to Oregon in October. Oregon's obviously great, but like a couple different bounces away from Ohio State being talked about as like the best team we've seen
Oh, yeah.
ever, right? Like that, because you look at the roster and what we were saying before the season started is this team shouldn't lose. They're so good. They have a loss and they're not ranked number 1. So it feels like, oh, well, maybe it's just, your same old Ohio State. They're obviously good, but they're, like whatever. Like if they had beaten Oregon, we would be saying like Indiana, why are we judging them? They didn't do that bad, right? Like this Ohio State team's just that good. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And I think the way that, the mass public is looking at it is just Indiana hasn't played anyone. And when they did, they got smoked. Therefore, they are not worthy. And I don't like that. You can't really do that in college football.
Yeah, it bothered me that everybody was bringing up the strength of schedule. And like, hey, Indiana has a really weak strength of schedule. They also played last year's national champion and the runner-up. Like, you can't help that year in and year out, like, teams change. Shit happens. Like, it is what it is. So I'm not going to fault Indiana. I thought they played a hell of a game. What I will fault, actually, you know what? I'm going to save that for my loser of the week. I'm going to save it for my loser of the week because I have a very big fuck you as a part of this game. Keeping it moving, though. Ole Miss, Florida. A hell of a game at the noon slate. I'm so sick and tired of SEC coaches bitching and complaining. And Lane Kiffin was asked about the SEC title game, and he's like, well, some of us coaches, first off, Lane Kiffin, just speak your fucking mind. You don't have to hide behind, well, us coaches were talking. Brother, it's your opinion. Just say the damn thing. But for him to be like, well, some of us are thinking about maybe making the SEC championship games bad because what if you lose and then you get kicked out? Like, and then you have to play that extra game. Hey, my brother, why don't you worry about winning the football games that you're playing? Let's not worry about future shit. And everybody complain Indiana's schedule and blah, blah. None of this matters if you just win the games in front of you. Do you think Nick Saban ever bitched about his fucking schedule? He just won the games in front of him. Like,
well, yeah.
And I understand he's absolutely come on TV and be like, Alabama should be in the playoff, and he's done the media gambit, and I get that. But at the same time, if you win, none of this matters. And they like Florida, DJ Lagways, he's the fucking guy.
He's great, dude. I was
he's the guy.
About that. We were watching that game like, oh man, he's very legit, true freshman. But no, so Lane Kiffin, like you're 100% right, because if they beat Florida and they're a 2-loss Ole Miss team with a dominating win against South Carolina and Georgia, and they go into the SEC championship, let's say, and they lose to Georgia, a team that they beat, then they have 3 losses. There is no world that they're out in that scenario. If we're sitting here talking about them being in now, then they're fine. If they beat Florida, like that's all you had to do is just win that game, but you didn't. And you can't say that you lost that game because you didn't want to make the SEC championship game. That doesn't make a lick of goddamn sense. But counterpoint, it is a thought that I'm sure a lot of people are having. I don't doubt that conversation did come up and hasn't come up, in a lot of spaces. Because, I think about, like, let's say Georgia loses to Georgia Tech, which might sound crazy in this season. Yeah. Anything is possible.
Yep.
If that happens and then Georgia loses the SEC championship game, then they're now a 4-loss team. I don't know if you can put a 4-loss team in the playoff. I just don't think you can do that. And that's a scenario where it's like, well, if they weren't in the SEC championship game, you would actually just put them on the same level of this is a 3-loss team, so is this, blah, blah, blah. So it's like it's a thing. You see it in the ACC for sure right now, but yeah. I don't think a lot would have to happen for it to be a big deal.
In my mind, I can't imagine getting up in front of a mic, knowing that you're on national TV, knowing that, whatever you say is going to be cascaded down to everyone inside and outside of your program, and say, I don't know if I want to make the conference change. Like, if I was a head coach, and obviously I'm sitting here with a microphone in my face, I'm not a head coach. However, if I was a head coach, my response would be, I want to make the conference championship because I think my team's good enough to fucking win it. And if not, well, guess what? We'll go out and we'll win the next game. Like, I win. Winning takes care of everything. And I think, Ole Miss, you spent a lot of money on this roster, and now you're going to sit here, you're going to finish 9-3, and I don't know where you go from here. Because, you're going to run it back with Lane.
They're in a spot that a lot of teams are in right now where it's just complete uncertainty. You got to hope. And we're going to find out. You and I are going to find out in 3 hours what the deal is. We're going to get a lot of answers. If you're listening to this, we already know. But I'm so fascinated about tonight. I am so fascinated.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn about what the committee thinks.
Absolutely. Keeping it moving to the Big 12, Arizona State, BYU, just an unbelievably chaotic ending. Just absolute chaos. The rushing of the field, they say that they have 1 second left. Nearly, the Hail Mary was nearly everything that BYU needed. They came up just short. They rushed the field a second time. The funniest thing, I don't know if you saw the TikTok, there is a kid, an Arizona State student, who rushed the field, and then when they kicked everybody off of the field, just hid in BYU's medical tent.
No way.
Yeah, never went back up in the stands. And there's just a video of him in the BYU medical tent. And he shows up, and you can see the game going on. He's just chilling in the medical tent for the last play.
That is incredible. What you picked the BYU medical tent, not Arizona State. That's ballsy, because I feel like that could be a penalty of some sort. But underrated thing that I think people aren't talking about enough about that game, because it was so crazy. Like, the goalpost got taken down. They had to put him back up. All that. We haven't seen that before. We waited 30 minutes for that Hail Mary, and it was almost completed for a touchdown. But Arizona State's decision making after that interception, they get down to the 5-yard line. Like again, I like Sports Center after the game, all the pundits talking about it. No one is like criticizing them for that. They're just like in Arizona State, they're at the 5 and now they're at the 50 and it's 4th and goal. And people are like, oh, okay. It's like, why the hell are you doing that, dude? You literally gave them a Hail Mary. You're fucking you're at the 5-yard line. Just go run, score a touchdown.
Yeah. Hey, guess what? If you don't, they have to go 95 yards in 4 seconds. Like, what are you?
Yeah, literally. I mean, it was asinine to see them snap the ball, run backwards 25 yards to save or to chop off 4 extra seconds. Then they do it again. And all of that just for BYU to have what they really realistically would have wanted to have anyway.
Yeah.
After that pick six, all they are asking for is give us a chance at a Hail Mary. And you just gave it to them. It's insane. So kudos to you, Arizona State. You won. Now you're probably the favorite to represent the Big 12.
They're in the driver's seat. They're winning. They're in.
Yeah. And we talked about last week that there was maybe a 10% chance that the Big 12 is not represented. What do you think that percentage is now?
I think it's I'm going to say there's 100% chance that they get in.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. I just don't. The American Conference, I think Notre Dame beat the absolute piss out of Army. I don't think they're going to put a 2-loss Tulane team that lost to Kansas State and lost to Oklahoma, I believe.
They got robbed. They
got
robbed in that Kansas State game.
Yeah. So I even though it was close, I think you lost to Kansas State, a Big 12 team. If they're not even good enough to get in the Big 12 title game, what thinks that Tulane, who didn't, you know what I mean? So I think that the Big 12 is a lock.
The logic's there, but I don't know if I agree, just because I think there's a scenario where, Arizona State loses, say BYU beats Houston, Iowa State could lose to Kansas State, and then we could have maybe I don't know who Colorado plays, but maybe they lose as well. But then BYU loses in the conference title game to
Texas Tech or something, and you get a 4-loss
wins, and then you're like, well, Tulane just won the American, right? And
yeah,
and I don't think that's
fair.
Impossible.
Yeah,
right. It would be crazy, but Tulane they're going to be ranked 16th or something. They're pretty right there with all those Big 12 teams. So the committee clearly values what Tulane has done. But we'll see, man. We'll see. If I was a Big 12 supporter, though, I would be a little nervous about it.
I do think it's more likely than not that Boise State, if they win out, gets the 4 seed. I think the Big 12 would sit. They would be more likely to be in the 12 spot. But Boise State, they were real tight with a bad Wyoming football team, so they make me real nervous. I think that UNLV and Tulane both still have a shot to get in.
I agree with that 100%. Now, especially because Colorado State just lost too, so now UNLV they got blessed. I want to talk about it because we were just saying just win. You don't have to worry about the logistics if you're Lane Kiffin, blah blah blah. But say you're Ohio State in this scenario, and you are pretty much locked in for the 5 seed unless you win the Big Ten championship game. Would you rather have the 5 seed this year, given what we know, or the 1 seed and have a bye, but then have to play the winner of the 8-9? That could be, it could be anyone from Texas, Georgia, Bama, it could be anyone. Whereas Ohio State knows that they would play Boise or the Big 12 champ or Tulane in their first 2 games.
Yeah, I think a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. I would rather take the 1 seed, know that I get the bye, and have another week off. Because if you get that 5 seed, I'm not saying it's impossible, but what if that 12 seed is an Arizona State team that's playing hot? You know what I mean? Or a Tulane team that's playing good.
I don't think Arizona State can beat Ohio State. I really don't.
Fair, but I don't know how many teams could beat Ohio State. And I would much rather know that I have the bye and keep it moving. This year's been weird as shit. I would rather just be safe than sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's probably I don't even want to say the conservative, that is the right way to approach it, but there could be at least
There's
some
an argument to be made.
conversational truth
Yeah.
to the fact that, like, if Oregon is the 1 and Ohio State's the 5, and then Oregon's like, fuck, dude, we have to play, the winner of Texas versus Notre Dame, right? And I don't like the fact that we have to do that. Whereas Ohio State gets BYU and then Boise if they win.
Yeah.
Which I think you would probably be like, I feel pretty. They would be double-digit favorites in both games if I had to guess.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Auburn, Texas A&M, quadruple overtime. That game, absolute chaos. The way it ended down the stretch in the, regular portion, regular time, that game was truly, truly poetic. Marcel Reed played his ass off. Peyton Thorne actually looked like a pretty competent quarterback. And then the drop in quadruple overtime to end that game. That was college football's that was just a college football's the best game.
It was. And
it was so after, I didn't give a shit who won, and it was electric.
I did as a Clemson supporter. The more people that lose in front of us, the better. And apologies to everyone that's watching on YouTube. That it's Feast Week. Happy Feast Week to everyone. College basketball. We're gonna get some content out for you soon on that end. But UConn, Colorado, close one. Clemson hoops playing. I'm a tiny bit distracted, but we're locked in. The Auburn game after a great day, right? You see Oklahoma beat Alabama. You're like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then, that spread was nuts in the Auburn game. Going to four overtimes, the drop, from Texas A&M at the end there. I don't know how he dropped that. Just everything was incredible about this past weekend. Everything was incredible. Now, what do you think, Cody, about Texas if they lose? Because I'm hearing a lot of things about Texas if they lose to A&M this week that they wouldn't deserve to be in. I am of the opinion that that's stupid.
Yeah, they'll put a 2-loss SEC team in. That's right. Not even a
2-loss SEC team with a loss to A&M at Kyle Field and a loss to Georgia. Right
at home, I guess.
I don't know. Still, I don't.
That was on the road. Georgia came to Austin, Texas.
It was at Bottles, but
yeah.
But the argument is, well, what are Texas's wins in that scenario? And it's like, well, Florida, Vanderbilt, like Michigan, Oklahoma, like none of them are fucking off the charts. But again,
but guess what? They beat Florida, a team that Ole Miss couldn't beat. They beat Oklahoma, a team that Alabama couldn't beat. They beat Vanderbilt, a team that Alabama couldn't beat. I think they would deserve to be in. I would put Tennessee above them, but I do think that they would deserve to be in.
I completely agree that, like, if Texas, sure, maybe they don't have any of these great wins, but you look at them play and you see, like, yeah, maybe they lost 2 games against very worthy teams, but they still went 10-2, beat everyone that they should have, and are clearly good when you watch them play. They clearly passed the eye test and then some. They are a top 5 team in efficiency, effectiveness, all that. The argument that I am interested in is that, like, you have teams like Clemson who similarly, we have South Carolina, obviously, but as of right now, 2 losses against the best 2 teams they've played. Georgia, obviously, and then Louisville, which is, you could say maybe that's a bad loss, but I think Louisville's a pretty good team. And then the rest of the schedule is like, well, they've beaten everyone and they have 2 losses. So why shouldn't they be considered in the same realm if Texas does lose? So that discussion could come up, and I think it could spark controversy.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Speaking on, I'm going to be honest, didn't watch a ton of the Alabama-Oklahoma game. I was watching Notre Dame Army, and then by the time I got invested in that game, Alabama was already pretty much out of it. Jackson Arnold looked like prime, Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson running the football. He looked good. Alabama, you got to be concerned if you are Kalen DeBoer, but it is his first year in the SEC. We'll see. But yeah, they didn't look good at all.
It helps Alabama that there's so much chaos across not only the SEC, but really everywhere. That it like, if this was just a normal college football season and Alabama was dropping these games, it would be a much bigger deal.
Yeah.
Like if Georgia was they had 1 loss and it was to Bama, and Ole Miss didn't have the Kentucky loss or the Florida loss, and like everyone was kind of just doing their job, and then Alabama just had these 2 crazy losses. then I think you could realistically be like, okay, Kalen DeBoer, you should be worried. But this just feels like a season where that's not, you can't really judge him that much.
Yeah.
There's too much
Yeah.
wild shit happening.
I'll agree. But Alabama fans, and the Iron Bowl is going to be big this week.
Yes, a lot of big games.
Yep. Briefly talking Notre Dame, they put belt to ass against Army. Their running attack is fucking sexual to watch. It's so good. And I know this is me, pat myself on the back and saying that I think that my team is good. And I do think that my team is good. But I think Notre Dame right now is playing like one of the 5 best teams in the country.
I completely agree. I mean, Army came into that game like as fiery as anyone could possibly be. Like that really felt like a true rivalry game. And to just stomp on them like that is crazy. Like, I mean, I guess my point is just you embarrassed a team that was trying as hard as they possibly could on a neutral site. So, and it was a top 20 team, whether they deserved that or not. Wow. Okay, Colorado, possible game winner right there. But yeah, just nuts. There's 5 seconds left. They just hit. They're up 1. So that's crazy. But again, Feast Week. It's like March Madness in November.
This is one of the best weeks of the year because you get Rivalry Week, you get the Maui Invitational, you get the Players Championship. Like, you get all of these sports. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, no, it really is. And Clemson's reeling right now as well. So again, I got to lock in. Notre Dame now, what are your thoughts if Notre Dame loses to USC? Do you think 2 loss Notre Dame, do you think they're out?
They should still be out. That Notre Dame, like, as a Notre Dame fan, and this is the difference between me and somebody, if my team's not good enough to be in there, I don't want to be. Like, I don't want to get a pity invite to the college football playoff because we have an ND on our uniforms. Don't want it, right? Either my team is good enough and they're one of the 12 best teams in the country, or they're not. And if your 2 losses are to Northern Illinois and USC, you're not good enough to be one of those top 12 teams in the country. So if we lose to USC, pull us out. That's fine. We don't play in a conference championship game. We don't have that to fall back on. And if you are going to be Notre Dame and you're not going to join a conference, tough titties, your expectations are higher. They have to be.
It would be
everything's on the line for this USC game. It's a rivalry game. It's on the road. Win the damn game. Win the damn game. Nothing else matters.
It would be a good punishment if, like Notre Dame, claiming deserve it and all that. And it's like, join a freaking conference, man. Just do it.
And here's the deal. I'm fine with Notre Dame not being in a conference. I would hate for them to join a conference. However, if this was a 2-loss Notre Dame team where on their schedule they played a Michigan, or not even a Michigan this year, but like last year when they played Ohio State, right? Or if they played like Ohio State and Clemson, if they had something like that on their resume, then I would agree. But we have 1 win against Texas A&M that's really carrying the load for us, and a pretty solid win against Louisville. What just happened?
Colorado just won.
Crazy. UConn, 2 in a row. But if Notre Dame had even a typical Notre Dame schedule is not easy like this year's is, then I would say, yeah, you know what? A 2-loss Notre Dame, I'm fine with. However, this year, our schedule's not tough. So you got to win out. It is what it is. Especially because our loss is to a 5-5 MAC school. Like, if it was to a good team, like how we lost to Louisville, then I would be like, yeah, sure, maybe a 2-loss gets us in. But no, we didn't lose to Louisville. We lost to NIU. So,
and it sucks because
now make your bed, you lie in it.
NIU's 6-5 or something, right? So, like, it would help a lot if NIU was like 10-2, possible MAC champ. They're not, and so that you have to judge that loss at home as it was, even if, like, because I think the argument could be like, look at how good they actually are, and then look at like fluky loss here, and then like say they lose in a fluky way to USC. Then it's just like, well, like clearly they're good. But it's like you kind of have to judge like these losses. You just have to do it.
Yeah, you do. You have to.
I still think that there's a world where they could find their way in, even if they lose.
They could, but it would require other shit to happen, right? At that point, you don't control your own destiny.
No, you should just go win this game, 100%.
Yep. Only other game I want to talk about from this weekend, Illinois. The end of that game was absolutely insane. Not sure if you watched that, Nick.
I didn't watch it live, sadly, but I did see it.
The stones on Brett Bielema for Rutgers to try to ice their kicker. They see that Brett Bielema sees his kicker kick it, that misses, just not even close. And he goes, fuck it, 4th and 13, we're going to go for it, end of the game. Like, our kicker's not making this. I'd rather go down swinging than try to attempt a kick. And they score on that last play of the game.
Yeah.
Unreal. I mean, the balls of Brett Bielema to do that, incredible finish.
How does that happen too? Like, if you're Rutgers, just like, it's not even a Hail Mary. It's like, I don't know what defense they were running, but he was untouched.
Yeah, it was almost like they did like a prevent defense and like, hey, everybody guard the goal line. And they're just like, all right, we'll just throw a fucking slant and let him make a move.
It felt kind of like that, like the Miami Miracle, Miami Dolphin Miracle against the Patriots.
Okay.
Where it was to Kenyon Drake, and he's just like everyone's just in their pocket, right? So he just weaves untouched 60 yards. It's like, well, that's the worst defensive idea I've ever seen. It kind of felt like that.
Yeah, crazy. All right, before we get to winners, losers, and dogs of the week, we have our home field plug. And the home field apparel plug is going to be a little bit different this week. So for those of you who have listened to the podcast for a while, you know Home Field is our favorite partnership. They make the best college merch in the game. That being said, Home Field is doing a Black Friday sale. So instead of our normal 15% off code, if you use code, I want to make sure that I'm reading it correctly. It is code BFCM. So Black Friday, Cyber Monday 24, BFCM 24 gets you 30% off everything in the store. It's not our code. However, if you use the link in the description of this video on YouTube, or the link in the description on Spotify, or if you go to Nick and I's social medias and you use the links in our bio to purchase, we still get kickback from that. But instead of getting the 15% off, you get 30% for Black Friday. So I'm going to be tweeting about it and making videos about it all throughout the week, especially as we get to actual Black Friday and Cyber Monday. However, the podcast listeners, you guys are the first ones to get it. Use code BFCM24 for 30% off your purchase at Home Field. And if I'm reading this correctly, it's not your first purchase, which has been what our code has been in the past. So if you've bought from Home Field before, guess what? You get 30% off again. So 30% off code BFCM at Home Field Apparel. All right, Nick, winners, losers, and dogs of the week. Who is your winner of the week?
Yeah, winner of the week for me, which is crazy, but I'm going to say, just because of everything that happened, I'm just going to say the Clemson-South Carolina rivalry as a whole. And obviously those two teams specifically, but just the fact that this game has, like, it almost feels like a playoff game already. Now, it's very possible both teams aren't respected in 2 hours when the playoff results or the ranking comes out. But it feels like winner is in a fantastic spot, and these are going to be two top 15 teams in a 12-team playoff season. That, like, it's so must win for both sides, and this is a rivalry that hasn't had that in a long time. Like, Clemson has been in must-win scenarios, but they were playing a South Carolina team where they were favored by 25, right? Or both teams are ranked, but, like, it doesn't matter because it's the BCS and you're ranked 12th and 18th or whatever. But it matters this year, and it only matters because, you know, Ole Miss lost, Bama lost, Texas A&M lost, BYU lost, you know, like, so many teams around them lost that, like, realistically, this has turned into maybe one of the two most must-watch games of the weekend, and for that, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it absolutely has some of the biggest playoff implications in terms of the games this weekend. I'm super excited for the Palmetto Bowl. My winner of the week is the Georgia Bulldogs, because in a week where the SEC did not show up and they did not do whatever, I understand that Georgia played UMass. However, everybody else fucked up. They are now locked into the SEC championship. I think that puts them in a position where, hey, we know that if we win this game, no matter what happens, we are in. And at the end of the day, I think that's all you could want if you are the Georgia Bulldogs. And I think that when they are at their best, they've looked like the best team in the SEC. So Georgia is my winner of the week. My loser of the week. I have two. I have two losers of the week. So, Nick, I want you to go first so that way I don't steal either of your losers of the week. And if your loser of the week is also like, I might have three. Okay. I might have three.
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously a ton of options, but I think the most logical option would probably be to say Alabama, just because putting up 3 points, in a spot like you have two losses, one's to Vanderbilt. You really, like, if you lose to Oklahoma, maybe it's super close and it's just one of those like tough road SEC games that you just got unlucky. Then maybe it's okay, but to lose like that really puts a bad taste in the committee's mouth, I hope. And we could be talking about Alabama not making the playoff. They probably shouldn't, in my opinion. And they have to be a loser, one of the biggest losers at least.
I love that. I have a loser of the week. So here's my three. Number one, Dan Hurley. If you're going to complain about not getting a favorable whistle because you are back-to-back national champs, how about you just try playing better, pal? That's the expectation. That's the expectation. UConn is a blue blood, and I understand that you want to get blue blood calls. Then play like it. This is, you know what I mean? We're in Feast Week, right? You're not playing, the Citadel. You're not playing these low-level D1 FCS schools anymore. Show up, play good basketball. Don't blame the refs for the deficiencies of your team and your players. All right, that's a tangent. My two losers of the week. Number one is Travis Hunter. You're going to do the Heisman pose twice when your team is getting the ball shoved down their throat. Shoved. I understand that the Travis Hunter Heisman campaign has done a phenomenal job in terms of the media and the promotion and him doing the interviews and all of that stuff. He's done incredible. That's great. I cannot stand when individual players are trying to compete for awards and not winning football games. Because guess what? He got burned a couple times against Kansas. So, is what it is. They played terrible. Travis Hunter, loser of the week. My other loser of the week, Ryan Day, you cowardly bitch. You had the opportunity to kneel the ball out against Indiana, and you decide to, and it's one thing to run the ball into the end zone at the end of the game. I understand that. But to line up in victory formation, to fake a kneel, to run the ball into the end zone, to go up 38-15, that is cowardly as fuck. You should be ashamed of yourselves, Ryan Day. You are playing Indiana. If you want to do that to Michigan because they've curb stomped you 3 consecutive years, I understand it. But if you are going to do that to Indiana, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You have not lost to them since 1992. What are we doing? That you are going to run a fake kneel down to sneak the ball into the end zone with 40 seconds left.
Yeah.
Shameful. Shameful.
That's like most annoying person of the week, perhaps, for Ryan Day, because that's just he gets on my nerves as well. But and then Dan Hurley, I don't know if you saw what he said to the refs to get that tech that cost him the game. I can't say it on air. But it's really funny. You should look that up.
All right. I will have to Google that.
Of a tech, that's for sure. And then Travis Hunter, I mean, that's a bad look. It's just a bad look.
Yeah, it's just not a good look. Not like
I mean, Gentie's been doing it too, so it's a little bit of like that. Like, I love the idea of, this is one of the craziest Heisman races, and these two guys equally deserve it, and it's awesome, and they're both hitting the Heisman whenever they do something great. But it's also like, hey, this is like, you want to go win the national championship, or you want to go win the Big 12, like, you're getting fucking shafted, and your Heisman posing is if that's all that mattered.
It'd be one thing, like, if he did it early in the game and it was tied, whatever. Kansas went up 17-0 on him immediately. Like, it was immediately they were down. So, like, that's hey, maybe we have a little self-awareness here. We're losing. Like,
yeah. So I'm with you there. All right, dog of the week. I had this written down. There's probably a lot more, better options in this regard. There are tons of guys that deserve dog of the week nominations. But when I found out that Minnesota's captain defensively for the game against Penn State, this guy who I think his name was David LeCaptain, his last name was LeCaptain. And I was like, that's awesome. And then he went out and blocked the punt. Again, and then I was like, the captain blocked the punt. That's my dog of the week. I'm writing it down. I don't care what else happens. So yeah, 100% had to be him just for aura of the name.
Yeah, 6th-year senior Derek LeCaptain,
Derek, yeah,
linebacker, 6'2", 230. He's just a linebacker dude, and you got to respect that.
That's unreal. It's unreal. LeCaptain.
Yeah,
Sweet.
you have to respect that. My dog of the week is Kenny Dillingham because this guy, I just love the passion with which he coaches, and for him to come out and not make any excuses and just kick a whole lot of ass against BYU. I love what he's doing. So my dog of the week, Kenny Dillingham.
Yeah. He was dogging the refs too. That's for sure.
Yeah.
For like 25 minutes after the game ended.
Yeah.
So I respect that. That is a jump ball. Thank you.
All right. We are going to do a quick draft. So Nick, we're each going to draft 3 here. I'll make a nice little graphic, but we are going to draft the best college football rivalry trophies. Not rivalries. We've done that in the past. And I feel like everybody says the same thing for rivalries. It's Army-Navy. It's the game. It's the Iron Bowl. So we're not going to do that. We are going to do the best rivalry trophies in college sports. And Nick, because you are winning the game picks, I will give you the first pick in the rivalry trophy draft.
Yeah, my personal favorite is the pig, the bronze pig that they have in the Iowa-Minnesota game. I think it's Floyd, they call the pig. But it's just awesome that these two Midwest schools with all these big burly white boys, fighting for the rights to have the frickin' pig. I just love that always. It feels like it embodies college football so aggressively.
Yeah, that is a very college football one, and it is the Floyd of Rosedale, which is an incredible name for a trophy. I'm also going to stick in the Midwest, and I'm doing Paul Bunyan's axe.
Nice.
It's just a giant axe. I don't know what else you could ask for from a trophy than just being a large weapon or tool. So Paul Bunyan's axe, Wisconsin, Minnesota, great name. I mean, everything you want from a rivalry trophy.
Okay, I like that. That was definitely on my board. My second pick is going to be Indiana-Purdue. So we're sticking in the Midwest again. And that is the bucket, the wooden bucket that they get, which to me is just awesome again. It's similar in the sense that it's like you're not getting like the freaking sword or the dragon or whatever, something super cool. You're getting the wooden bucket. Congrats on winning the bucket. Freaking awesome.
The old oaken bucket, which is an incredible trophy for sure. I like that. There are a lot of good ones in the Midwest, and I think that, there are some good ones, but I like a good wearable trophy. And this isn't a rivalry week game, but it certainly is a rivalry. The Red River Shootout, Texas, Oklahoma, has the golden cowboy hat, and that thing just looks good. And it's a wearable trophy. Like you have to respect a wearable trophy. So
I agree.
Give me the golden hat.
I am going to go. I will shout out. I do want this to be D1. There are certainly options outside of D1, like the troll.
You could go so deep.
Yeah, you can go deep. Like there is Concordia Moorhead versus St. Olaf. The winner gets the troll. It's like this. It's just this freaking gargoyle that they win. So that's awesome. But
I love that.
I have to go the Golden Egg. And obviously that rivalry game itself is up there. Won't be really this year, but the Golden Egg as a whole is awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love anything that's nice, gold, shiny, but I also love like things that are just, worn and been there for a while. And the golden egg is something that's been in college football for a long, long time. I want to do, before I get into my last one, I want to give some honorable mentions because there are a lot of good trophies on here. The Iron Skillet, TCU, SMU, is an incredible trophy. Love that. The Golden Shillelagh, Notre Dame, USC. I think it's a good one.
Shillelagh. It's great.
There are some really I think it was this week, Kent State, Akron, the wagon wheel. Just a giant wagon wheel is
Awesome.
all it is. But I'm going to go with an unbelievable trophy. I don't know how new this trophy is. I don't know the history and the tradition behind it. But when I was doing the research for this, I just knew that this trophy deserved the spotlight, and it deserves my 3 spot. It looks like it was, I just gave it a quick Google. Looks like the trophy came to existence in 2006. It is the bones between UAB and Memphis.
Just bones?
And it is just a 100-pound bronze rack of ribs. And between at Birmingham, Alabama and Memphis, like 2 of the best barbecue spots in the country. Yeah.
That's a culture pick right there. That probably wins you the draft.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
Who knows? It could be unknown and people don't give it the credit it deserves. But
I mean, if we do make a graphic, which I can, I'll make sure I put images in. So
yeah,
we can at least see that it's just it's the bones.
The bones.
Rib cage.
Incredible.
Okay, yeah, there are so many, dude. It's like, honestly, while I was researching it, I was like, how am I supposed to pick? Incredible.
It's one of the most, there are certain things that just have some charm about college football, and rivalry trophies are just something that are incredible. They're great. They're one of the best parts of the sport. All right, Week 14 preview. Before we get into Week 14 preview, I'm going to double down on the home field plug. We're going back to back, like Jordan 96, 97. Use code BFCM 30% off your home field purchase. Truthfully, they have absolutely some of the best college merch in the game. Makes a great gift. I know that I will be giving a ton of people on my Christmas list some home field merch. So the absolute best. But this week's slate, a lot of good games spread out amongst a couple of days. There's one game Thanksgiving, a whole bunch of games Black Friday, and then the Saturday slate. We're going to start Thursday, a game that means an absolute ton for the American Conference, and it's the only game Thursday. Memphis at Tulane. Tulane's a 14.5-point favorite. Before we get into that, I went 5-7 last week. Nick went 8-4. So Nick is 102-50, the first person to cross the hundo mark. Congratulations, Nick. I am 97-55. So I have a little work to do. To catch up. We do include bowl season in this, so obviously that plays a huge factor. But
the regular season just gets you a head start. Anything can happen in bowl season. It's like 3 more weeks of games, basically.
Yep. So Memphis at Tulane. Tulane's a 14.5-point favorite. I'm going to keep this one real simple. I'm taking Tulane. I think right now they are playing the best ball out of any group of 5 team in the country. And I'll stand on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this could definitely be a spot where Tulane is sort of starting to think like, oh my God, we could sneak into the playoff, or even like Boise loses this week, or like crazy things could happen in the Mountain West where this just feels like so important that maybe they lose, right? But I can't do that. The spread's a little concerning. I do think this is a very, very close game, but I'm going to go with Tulane, a little bit of a hopeful pick because I do want to see chaos, and I like Tulane being up there.
Yep. All right, moving into the Friday slate. I put this game on here, Nick. Oregon State at Boise State.
Yeah, exactly.
Boise State is a 20.5-point favorite.
That's crazy.
Boise State's coming off a game where they beat Wyoming by 3. And Wyoming is not good this year. They are a bad football team. And
yes.
Boise State beat them by 3.
They barely
Oregon State. Yeah, they barely beat Nevada. Oregon State, on the other hand, is coming off of a game where they beat an 8-3 Washington State team.
Exactly.
Beat them 41-38 to take firm control of the Pac-2.
They win. They win the Pac-2.
I think there's a legitimate shot that Boise State loses this weekend.
20.5 is crazy.
Would be a major upset. I'm absolutely hammering Oregon State plus 20.5. I can promise you that. That will be my biggest bet of the entire weekend. However, noon Eastern kickoff, so I think it might be 10 o'clock in Boise, Idaho. Dude.
Really? Noon Eastern?
Yeah.
That's great. Like that, yeah, a little sloppy, sluggish start. Maybe anything can happen, but I mean, luckily that actually is less beneficial for Oregon. It's 9 a.m. in their mind, right? So that's very strange. I mean, I'm going Boise. I do think that this is sort of like so many people are starting to doubt Boise State, and that's right when they just bounce back. That's just how the sport works, right? Like once the
Yeah.
public starts to think something, the opposite's going to happen. It just works like that. So I do think Boise State could just go out, dominate this game, but it's also possible they have been concerning.
Yep. I'm going to take Boise State as well, but just a game to keep an eye on for sure. Georgia Tech, Georgia plays Friday night, 7:30. Georgia's a 19.5 point favorite. I think Georgia wins this game. I think they win it convincingly, and I think that they leave no doubt that the SEC still runs through Athens, Georgia, regardless of who's playing them in the SEC championship.
I think this game's going to be really close. I really do, dude. I feel like this, like even some of the most dominant Georgia teams and some of the most forgettable Georgia Tech teams have had some weirdly close games in the past couple of years. And like Georgia Tech kind of miracled their way to a win against NC State. They probably should have lost that game.
Yeah, that was nuts.
So they are playing with nothing to lose, disrespectful spread, you could argue, although it's probably warranted. I don't know. I think this could be like a tied at halftime, Georgia up 7 in the fourth. Then Georgia just wins by 10-17. But I like Georgia Tech on the spread. I definitely do.
All right. Love it. Right now, we're 3 for 3 picking the same teams. We'll see. I don't think this next game is going to be any different. Michigan at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put the game on here because it's the game. However, I think Ohio State beats the absolute piss out of Michigan. So
yeah, I'm going Ohio State.
All right. Keeping it easy. Michigan. We'll talk about some offseason stuff as like a season recap. Bryce Underwood's got to be in that conversation because that story is kind of nuts. $10 million in NIL. Crazy.
I think Dave Portnoy bought him. Like
Dave
literally.
Portnoy and the guy who owns Oracle. He's like the second richest man in the world.
Okay. Crazy. Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that eventually.
Yep. Tennessee at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a 10.5 point dog. This game is, it's interesting. Like, do I think Tennessee's the better team? Absolutely. But do I think Vanderbilt could make this nasty and gross and pull something out of their ass? They could.
I do think they could. I mean, I think Tennessee has been concerning enough in spots, offensively and defensively, more so offensively, where I can just see this being the upset of the week, right? Like we get one every week, it seems. And, I'm a little too afraid to pick a lot of them in a lot of spots, but I think this one is one where I can really close my eyes and see it happening. And enough people have fallen off that Vandy hype train. I think I could be wrong about that, but I think enough people have fallen off for me to be able to pick that confidently.
I love it. All right.
Not confidently. I'm not confident about it, but
but to pick it.
Bold pick. That's my bold pick.
Yeah. All right. I'm rocking with Tennessee, but that is a very, very important game to the college football playoff picture. Speaking of, I would say this is arguably the most important game to the playoff picture because I think if you lose, you are 100% out. There's no question about it for both teams. And that is the Palmetto Bowl. 16 South Carolina comes in to Death Valley at number 12 Clemson. Clemson is a 2.5 point favorite. I think so many people talked about how South Carolina should be in the playoff and how South Carolina this and South Carolina that. I don't think that people are ready for Clemson to just come in and punch South Carolina right in the mouth. And 2.5 point favorite. We've talked to Nick time and time again about Clemson having a tremendous home field advantage, one of the best home field advantages in football. They've lost very few games outright at home. Now, the South Carolina team 2 years ago was one of those. However, I feel confident in Clemson here. I'm taking the Tigers.
I'm definitely not confident. I'm actually quite scared. South Carolina's been playing really, really good football. I mean, this is such a big rivalry, dude. It's so slept on.
Oh yeah.
Um, my goodness, that it's just like I can't pick against Clemson. I'm not going to do that. I would never in a million. Like I didn't even. You could write Clemson down for me
Yeah.
already. But
Already did.
you could have done that 2 years ago. But I am concerned. I'm extremely excited for it. But like, no confidence. Don't think we're going to kick him in the mouth. Definitely think it's going to be close. Definitely think we could piss down our legs. Very scared. But obviously, I'm going Clemson.
Yep. Next up, my rivalry game, Notre Dame at USC. USC is a 7.5-point dog. This spread's a little bit tighter than I thought it was going to be, truthfully. That being said, USC has at times been known to not be a tough team. And I don't know if there is a tougher team in the country right now than Notre Dame, offensively and defensively. Just the way they run the football, the way that they defend. They can defend you any way that you want. Notre Dame has an answer for it. Give me the Irish by, I don't know, 20. And Lincoln Riley takes his happy ass to the NFL to be an offensive coordinator for the, I don't know, Chicago Bears, right? See ya. I think he's gone. Give me Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible. This one I've been back and forth on. I feel like I've picked like I don't think I can pick Vanderbilt and USC here. So I'm gonna go Notre Dame, sort of for those exact reasons, right? Where it's kind of just oh boy, it's kind of just the idea that USC and the spread, and as much as people want to see USC win this game, it's in California. Can they handle the rushing attack and Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love and I just don't think they can. I really don't think they can. Like they could have lost to UCLA. Clearly they are inferior, and the spread is weird. I think USC. I've said it all year. I think USC can win this game and absolutely shake everything up. But everything's been shaken up already. Like everything's fucking chaotic already. So it's probably not going to happen. I'm going to go Notre Dame.
Yep. Auburn at Alabama, the Iron Bowl. Alabama is a 11.5-point favorite, which kind of surprising a little bit, the spread, just based on Auburn upsetting Texas A&M, Alabama losing to Oklahoma.
You think it should be lower?
But yeah, I think the number should be a little bit. I was thinking it'd be like 9.5 is what I thought it would be. I thought it'd be just under 10.
I was expecting like 14, honestly, but
Ooh.
I don't hate that logic. I just think Auburn's not. They're still not good in my eyes. I think Alabama's definitely better, and this is where I think, like what you said about Georgia Tech. This is where I think Alabama smacks them. It seems like every time the game is in Jordan-Hare, it's shocking every time. But when it's in Alabama, for the most part, not so much. Like 2017, Auburn won, I think. 2019, Auburn won. 2021 was the triple overtime where Auburn had a 100% chance of winning and somehow lost, right? Because of bad coaching, bad clock management. And then 2023, obviously, was the miracle of Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, 4th and 23.
And 2013, we obviously know what happens. It really, this game is amazing when it's in Jordan-Hare, but when it's in Tuscaloosa, those awesome games that you can think of, they don't come to mind because they don't really exist. So this to me feels like, Alabama's probably going to win by a lot.
Yeah, Alabama, their 3 losses this year at Vanderbilt, at Knoxville, Tennessee, at Norman, Oklahoma. For what it is, they have taken care of business at home. So I'm going to take Alabama as well. Miami at Syracuse. I'm real interested in this game.
Yeah.
Real interested in this game.
Yes.
Dude, I think Syracuse has a shot.
Yeah.
I think they have a shot.
Whatever you do, I'll do the opposite. I'll say that.
All right. Well, you've taken your big underdog. So I think it's my time to take my big underdog. I'm going to take Syracuse here. Miami, they beat the brakes off of Wake Forest. But like, I'm not convinced that this Miami team that we've seen is capable of like getting consistent stops defensively. And say what you will about Syracuse, their offense has been kind of nice with Kyle McCord. Like, it's been kind of nice. And they're rung a couple of wins together. I'm going to take the orange here. I don't love it, This is definitely my biggest upset pick, but I like Syracuse.
It's just Miami allows teams to play better than they usually do. It's like a weird thing for a top 10 team that, they consistently are not like stopping, like they're not doing anything really to get an advantage, right? Like a defensive lead, like they are. Like Syracuse is going to be able to get theirs, I think, because they have enough talent. And Miami's just they don't have, like, they're not going to take away this X receiver. They're not going to load the box. They're bad in that sense. The problem is that they have their cocaine halftime. They have their cocaine halftime where Michael Irvin gives them cocaine. It happens. It's not a theory anymore. Syracuse might have to be up by a lot. They might have to be up by a lot for them to actually pull through. But we saw it, right? Like Georgia Tech, you would have said the same thing. Like Georgia Tech doesn't have the juice to beat Miami, but they did. Syracuse probably can do it as well. It's just, we'll have to see. But I'm going to go Miami.
That's fair. Nick, I'm going to make you do something likely for the last time this season. I'm going to make you pick an Arizona football game because they're not making a bowl. However, Arizona State at Arizona. Arizona is an 8.5-point dog. Nick, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going Arizona, Cody. Cody, I have to do it. Cody, I have to do it. This is my.
How many times, dude? You've been wrong on Arizona. Like, not you have.
That's the old me. I've changed. We've gone like 4 weeks without me doing it. This time I'm going to be right. I know it. I know it in my heart. This is the Big 12 we're talking about. People are going to be looking at this like, oh, Arizona stinks. Arizona State's going to win. All the people are going to be focused on the Big 12 more so than they've been. You're going to think, well, BYU's going to beat Houston. Arizona State's going to win. Colorado's going to win. BYU's going to win. Iowa State's going to win. No. Half of those teams are going to lose to far inferior teams because that's what happens in the Big 12. Arizona State, good team. Very possible they lose to Arizona. Even if Arizona's bad, it is so entirely possible. It's also a rivalry game. Like, anything can happen. It's just you're setting me up here. I knew this was going to happen. But yeah, Arizona.
Yeah.
I mean, freaking, I don't even think this is that. It's not even like this bold pick I have. This is the damn Big 12 we're talking about, dude. Like, the chaos is among us. It's going to happen.
Yep. And I'm going with Arizona State just to spite you one last time. Just to spite you one last time.
Yeah, just to get a free win one more time. Now, Cody, the reason that I think I have taken the lead is because we stopped doing the Arizona game.
Yeah, I should have made you pick them every week.
I'm up 5. We probably haven't done an Arizona game in 5 weeks.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Imagine if we did.
All right, Texas and Texas A&M. Probably it's college game day. There's a reason that this is potentially the biggest game. Texas A&M wins, they are in the SEC title game. If Texas wins, they are in the SEC title game. It's very straightforward. This is a rivalry that they are playing for the first time in 13 years.
Crazy.
I'm actually very, very excited. I think the atmosphere of this game is going to be electric. This is the most expensive regular season ticket for a college football game ever.
What?
In terms of average get-in price, it is over $1,000.
Holy cannoli!
The average ticket price. Insane.
My God. I mean, it tells you, man, like college football, like it's more expensive than the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
That's nuts. Trivia question. Do you know the last time they played, who won and who kicked the game-winning kick?
So knowing that I don't know a single name of a kicker from Texas A&M, but I know one kicker from the University of Texas, and knowing that you're a Ravens fan, I'm going to say that Texas won on a Justin Tucker field goal.
Yes. That's correct.
Nailed it.
Good deductive reasoning. Yeah, no, but last time they played, crazy game. Been 13 years. Very glad this rivalry is back. I think a lot of people are going to be on Texas A&M. I am not going to be one of them. I'm going to take Texas, but it's probably going to be a really good game. It might be the same script.
Yep. I had Texas taking 3 losses this year, and this was one of them. I'm going to stick by my guns. I'm sticking with Texas A&M. I think they bounce back after the Auburn loss. But more importantly, I think this is going to be such a good football game. So I was going to go with whatever you went the opposite of. I'm so excited for this game. I think it's going to be absolutely electric. So give me Texas A&M. And then lastly, we have Farmageddon, which incredible name for a college football
This is
rivalry.
the closest one, the closest spread, right? Is this one?
Yeah, this and the Palmetto Bowl are both 2.5.
Okay.
But yeah, Kansas State at 17, Iowa State. Kansas State technically still not dead for the Big 12 title game, so my preseason bet is still alive. That being said, Nick, who do you have in this one? Because this is a game I can go either way.
Yeah, I think I go Kansas State here. Again, it's just there's just no way that all of these Big 12 teams that are clearly not better than the teams behind them in the standings. It's just how the conference works. There's no way they all win. The spread is representative of the current standings, but I don't think it's representative of what is actually possible. So I think Kansas State. There was a lot of possibility this year where Kansas State's a 7.5-point favorite against Iowa State. I haven't liked Iowa State all year, and they've needed to they needed to escape last week and the week before, right? Like they or maybe it was just last week, but I don't like Iowa State, man. I really don't. So I can't pick them. I'm going Kansas State.
Yeah, Iowa State, their last 4 games, they had to escape from Utah. They beat Cincinnati. Then they lost to Kansas and lost to Texas Tech.
But they barely beat Cincinnati. Am I right, or was that?
Yeah, they beat them fairly handedly.
Okay.
They beat them.
So then, yeah, maybe I'm. Okay, then they just played Utah.
Yeah, they just played Utah, and they had to escape from that game.
Yeah. Okay.
But then Kansas State, the exact same boat. They beat Cincinnati last week, but then they lost to Arizona State, lost to Houston, and had to pull out come from behind victory against Kansas. So their last 4 games
beating Kansas is actually quite impressive.
Yeah,
because who didn't beat Kansas is Iowa State.
Fair. So I'm gonna roll with Iowa State. I'm gonna fade myself from the beginning of the year, but this game, anything could happen. You could tell me anything, and I'd believe you. So, all right, those are the games. Super, super excited. We will be back talking conference championship weekend next week. Nick, I cannot believe we've already done 14 of these this year. It's absolutely insane. We are also going to do some college basketball talk. So what I will promise you guys is I will put up a just open-ended forum on my Instagram this weekend after we've watched all of Feast Week, and you just throw in college basketball stuff that you want us to talk about. And we'll come up with a list. We'll do teams that we are excited to watch. We'll talk through some of the major conferences, and we'll answer your guys' question as we get into this college basketball season, because it's already off to a hot start and it's only going to get better. So that is coming this weekend. Make sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss anything. Nick's got the ball and he's looking to score, but we will see y'all in the next one.
Go Tigers.